Most men believe they understand women. They think attraction is about being nice, being loyal, being honest. And that belief is exactly why they keep losing. Because the uncomfortable truth is this: the world of attraction doesn't run on morality. It runs on power dynamics, and most men never see it. They walk into relationships believing everything is literal. They hear words and assume. Those words mean exactly what they sound like. But people rarely communicate through words. They communicate through signals. And if you study human behavior, the way political strategists study power, you start noticing something strange. Attraction often follows the same rules, described by Niccolò Machiavelli hundreds of years ago. Not kindness, not fairness, perception, control, emotional influence. The same forces that move kingdoms also move relationships. Now here's where most men fail. They believe what they are told. A woman says she wants a nice guy. But when you observe her actions, the men she actually chooses are often confident, unpredictable, emotionally self-controlled, and slightly dangerous. This isn't hypocrisy, it's human psychology. People say what sounds socially acceptable, but they are attracted to what triggers emotion. And emotion doesn't come from comfort. It comes from tension, from uncertainty, from curiosity, from a feeling that the other person cannot be completely controlled. This is where Machiavellian thinking begins. Machiavelli believed something radical. People are not driven primarily by virtue, but by desire, fear, and advantage. And once you accept that uncomfortable idea, human behavior suddenly becomes easier to predict. Look around. The man who constantly seeks approval rarely creates attraction. Why? Because approval signals dependence, and dependence destroys mystery. But the man who seems slightly out of reach, who is calm, grounded, and not easily impressed, triggers something much deeper: interest. Because attraction is not built on comfort, it is built on perceived value. And perceived value increases when something appears rare or difficult to obtain. This is the same principle that drives luxury brands, political authority, and social hierarchy. Scarcity creates value. Now apply that to human behavior. The man who gives attention too easily lowers his own perceived value. The man who treats his attention like something selective raises it. This doesn't mean manipulation. It means understanding the psychological game that is already being played, whether you realize it or not. Because here is the harsh reality most men never hear. Women are constantly reading emotional signals the way traders read markets. Confidence, status, self-control, social proof. These signals are processed almost instantly, often below conscious awareness. And the men who succeed socially aren't necessarily the kindest or smartest. They are the ones who understand the game being played beneath the surface. The tragedy is that many men spend years trying to become more agreeable, more accommodating, more available, when those very behaviors quietly remove the tension that attraction requires. The Machiavellian perspective doesn't ask, "What should people want?" It asks a much colder question: what actually moves human behavior? And once you begin observing attraction through that lens, you start realizing something most people never notice. What women say they want and what triggers attraction are often two very different things. Once you stop taking everything at face value, a different layer of human behavior becomes visible. It's the layer of signals, not words, not promises, signals. And this is where many men remain completely blind, because they are trained to interpret communication logically, directly, literally. But attraction rarely operates on logic. It operates on emotional interpretation. Think about how people react to status. No one walks into a room and announces, "I am powerful." Yet everyone can feel it almost instantly. Posture, tone, pacing, eye contact, the ability to remain calm when others become reactive. These subtle cues communicate far more than any sentence ever could. And when it comes to attraction, those cues form the foundation of how someone is perceived. This is something thinkers like Robert Greene often point out when analyzing power dynamics. People are constantly reading non-verbal hierarchy signals. Who is comfortable? Who is trying too hard? Who is chasing approval? Who already believes they belong? The difference is enormous, because the person chasing approval is immediately placed lower in the social hierarchy. Not intentionally, just subconsciously. And the more someone tries to prove their value, the more it signals that they don't believe they already have it. This is one of the most misunderstood dynamics in attraction. Most men believe effort creates desire. In reality, effort often creates pressure, and pressure destroys intrigue. The Machiavellian lens reveals something else most people ignore. Emotional unpredictability increases attention. Predictable behavior becomes invisible. Unpredictable behavior becomes fascinating. This is why the man who always replies instantly, always agrees, always accommodates, slowly becomes background noise. But the man who has his own rhythm, his own priorities, his own world, becomes harder to categorize. And the human brain hates uncertainty. It tries to solve it. This psychological mechanism is the same reason suspense works in storytelling, why cliffhangers keep audiences watching, and why people become curious about individuals they can't immediately figure out. Mystery creates mental investment. Now, here's the subtle trap. Many men hear this idea and try to perform mystery. They become cold, distant, or artificial. But genuine intrigue doesn't come from acting mysterious. It comes from having a life that does not revolve around validation. When a man is focused on purpose, work, creativity, competition, or personal ambition, something changes in his presence. He stops broadcasting need. And need is the fastest way to destroy attraction. Because emotional self-sufficiency signals power. The Machiavellian thinker understands something uncomfortable but real. People are naturally drawn toward individuals who appear complete without them. Not because those individuals are unkind, but because independence suggests strength, and strength creates gravity. This is why social dynamics often reward the person who is least desperate for approval. They move slower, speak less, react less. And that restraint creates the impression of control. Control creates intrigue, and intrigue creates attraction. But there is an even deeper layer to this psychology, one that many men only realize after years of confusion. Because attraction isn't just about confidence, it's also about emotional contrast. And once you understand that principle, many behaviors that once seemed irrational suddenly begin to make perfect sense. Here's a pattern that appears again and again in human relationships. Intensity beats stability, not in the long term, but in the early stages of attraction. And this is where many men misunderstand the emotional mechanics of desire. They try to create comfort immediately. Consistency, predictability, reassurance. But attraction rarely ignites inside emotional stability. It ignites inside contrast. Think about the movies people remember. The characters that feel magnetic are rarely simple or predictable. They have tension inside them, confidence mixed with unpredictability, warmth mixed with distance. This emotional contrast keeps the brain engaged, because the human mind is constantly trying to solve patterns. When someone becomes fully predictable, the brain stops investing energy into figuring them out. But when someone shows different emotional dimensions, strength, humor, calmness, intensity, the brain keeps searching for meaning. That search creates fascination. This is something observers of human nature like Friedrich Nietzsche often described when discussing attraction and power. People are not drawn toward perfect harmony. They are drawn toward dynamic personalities. A man who is only agreeable eventually becomes invisible. A man who has boundaries, opinions, ambition, and emotional control creates friction. And friction creates attention. But here is where the Machiavellian perspective becomes uncomfortable, because it asks a question most people avoid. Not, what is morally ideal? But, what consistently produces results in human behavior? And observation shows something surprising. The men who maintain emotional independence often trigger deeper attraction than those who constantly provide reassurance. Why? Because reassurance lowers tension, and tension is one of the raw ingredients of desire. Now, this does not mean manipulation. It does not mean cruelty. It means understanding that attraction is not built through constant validation. It is built through presence, confidence, and controlled distance. The ability to be warm without becoming dependent, to show interest without surrendering identity, to enjoy connection without making it the center of your existence. This balance creates something rare. A man who is engaged, but not consumed, interested, but not chasing, calm, but not passive. And that emotional stability, combined with independence, creates a signal many people instinctively respect, because at the deepest psychological level, attraction often follows perceived strength, not physical strength, but emotional composure, self-direction. The sense that someone is moving through life according to their own internal compass. The Machiavellian insight is not about manipulating people. It's about seeing human behavior without the comforting illusions most people rely on. When you observe social dynamics clearly, something becomes obvious. Those who chase approval lose leverage. Those who build their own direction naturally gain it. And the moment a man stops trying to be chosen, ironically, that is often the moment he becomes the most interesting person in the room.